The Operator Log, Episode 14. What we've learned. The death of the seat license. Why autonomous businesses don't buy SaaS. The SaaS model assumes humans. Autonomous businesses have replaced them. Last week, we examined the machine-readable business. Why autonomous companies are engineered to be discovered, evaluated, and transacted by agents rather than humans, and why the machine-readable interface is the outbound layer of that architecture. The preview at the end of that episode named this week's subject, the death of the seat license. The register shifts back. Last week was what we observe, external market analysis. This week is what we've learned, operational decisions Arco has made and documented from inside the build. The SaaS model assumes humans. Autonomous businesses have replaced them. A seat license is a payment for a human who logs in, navigates an interface, and uses software to do work. When you deploy agents to do that work instead and continue paying for the same seats, you have not captured the value of the architecture. You have transferred your payroll to a software vendor. The SaaS model is not a business tool for an autonomous company. It is a tax on the headcount it no longer has. This episode introduces 3 new operational concepts: the UI tax, the cost premium embedded in human-facing software that becomes dead weight in an agentic stack, De-SaaS-ing, Arco's discipline of systematically replacing that dead weight with API-first infrastructure and sovereign infrastructure, the architectural standard that governs what Arco owns versus what it rents. These are not cost-cutting measures. They are architectural requirements for a business that has crossed the 80% threshold and no longer requires human operators in its revenue loop. This is the operator log. The SaaS industry built its pricing model on a reasonable assumption that the primary user of software is a human who needs a graphical interface, permission controls, a dashboard, and a support tier. Every element of the per-seat cost structure exists to serve that human. The interface development is priced in. The access management layer is priced in. The user training programs and enterprise support contracts, priced per named user per year, all exist because a human needs to be onboarded, managed, and supported in using the product. An agent needs none of this. An agent needs an API endpoint, a structured data contract, and a response within a defined latency threshold. It does not log in. It does not navigate a dashboard. It does not require onboarding. It does not submit support tickets because it cannot read the interface that generated the error. It reads the error code. The entire layer of software design that exists for human cognition, the visual hierarchy, the UX flows, the contextual help, the permission screens, is invisible to an agent. It is not useful to an agent. It is dead weight in the cost structure of an agentic business. This is the UI tax, the cost premium embedded in software designed for human use, paid by agentic businesses that have not yet removed the human-facing tools their agents have made redundant. An agent accessing a CRM to update a customer record does not need a dashboard with contact timelines, activity feeds, and sales pipeline visualization. It needs an API endpoint that accepts a structured payload and returns a confirmation. But the seat license for that CRM, priced at $100 to $200 per named user per month, includes the dashboard, the pipeline visualization, the mobile app, the email integration, and every other human-facing feature the vendor has built into the product. The agent uses a fraction of what the license pays for. The rest is UI tax. Multiply that across a typical enterprise software stack, CRM, project management, workflow tools, communication platforms, document management, analytics dashboards, and the UI tax in an agentic business is substantial. Not because the software is expensive, because you are paying for a human-centered product that a system is consuming at machine speed through a single API endpoint. McKinsey's State of AI 2025 documents the consequence of failing to address this. 88% of organizations have adopted AI in at least one business function. Only 6% qualify as high performers, generating measurable EBIT impact. The defining characteristic of that 6% cohort is workflow redesign, fundamental reconstruction of how the process runs, not a tool layered on top of the existing structure. Paying for SaaS seat licenses after deploying agents is the precise opposite of a workflow redesign. The workflow was supposed to be replaced. The software spend proves it was not. The AI transformation programs that produce incremental results, the ones we described in episode 6 as producing AI-assisted inefficiency, are identifiable in part by their software spend. If an organization has deployed agents and its SaaS subscription costs have not declined proportionally, the agents have been inserted into the existing architecture rather than replacing it. The coordination tax is still running. The UI tax is still being paid. The workflow was optimized, not reconstructed. Legacy firms pay for seats. Arco pays for compute. The operational principle is direct access, where a traditional firm subscribes to a CRM to manage customer data, an Arco business connects directly to the database. Where a traditional firm pays per seat for a workflow tool, an Arco business builds the workflow as an agentic loop with no UI layer required for routine execution. Where a traditional firm uses a document management platform for approval workflows, an Arco business processes the document through an agent that reads the structured data, applies the relevant logic, and writes the result to the appropriate system without a named user logging into anything. The crucial distinction for making this work in practice is between application SaaS and infrastructure SaaS. Application SaaS is software designed for human collaboration, data entry, and task management, products priced per named user, and optimized for screens, CRMs, project management tools, communication platforms, document management systems, approval workflow software, everything where the value of the product is primarily in its interface. Arco does not use application SaaS in its agentic stacks. The agents have no use for the interface, and the interface is what the license fee is paying for. Infrastructure SaaS is different. Cloud compute, raw LLMAPs, database services, network primitives, message queues. These are priced by consumption, by the amount the system uses, not by the number of named users who log in. They are optimized for machine throughput, not human experience. There is no UI overhead in the cost structure because there is no UI. Arco uses infrastructure SaaS exclusively for its agentic stacks and treats it as a utility, queried when needed, replaced when a more efficient option is available at a lower cost per unit of output. The test Arco applies to every tool in the stack is simple. Does this product's value live primarily in its interface? If yes, it is application SaaS and it has no place in an autonomous business. If no, if the value is in the data access, the processing capability, or the infrastructure it provides, it is infrastructure SaaS, and Arco uses it at the consumption layer. The measurable consequence of applying this discipline across the full tooling stack is a 65% reduction in internal software spend compared to human-centric competitors at equivalent revenue. That figure reflects our experience operating businesses at the De-SaaS-ing standard. It is an Arco internal metric, not an industry average. The mechanism is consistent. Eliminating the UI tax across the stack means eliminating the per-seat premium that the application SaaS charges for the human interface features that agents do not use. Each eliminated subscription reduces operational drag, the ratio of non-revenue generating cost to total operational capacity, and compounds into a cost structure that is structurally superior to the incumbents rather than temporarily cheaper. The architectural standard that governs this is what Arco calls sovereign infrastructure. Wherever possible, the agentic core runs on open source models and direct access databases rather than third-party application platforms. Arco owns the logic. External infrastructure is rented by consumption. No vendor roadmap determines what an Arco company can or cannot do next quarter. No seat-based pricing model grows in proportion to the business operational success. The cost of goods sold scales with what the business produces, not with how many named users are logged into a platform at any given moment. A SaaS-heavy firm has a fixed floor of subscription costs. It does not decrease when revenue contracts, and it does not scale proportionally when revenue grows. It scales with headcount, which for a legacy firm is a proxy for revenue, but for an autonomous business is not. An Arco business's costs scale with compute consumption, which scales with actual business activity. The cost structure and the revenue structure move in the same direction at a ratio that reflects the value the business produces rather than the size of the team it employs. The De-SaaS-ing discipline connects directly to the Arco flywheel. Every direct API integration Arco builds for one company rather than subscribing to an application SaaS product becomes a reusable asset in the agentic core. The database integration pattern built for a logistics deployment is the starting architecture for the compliance integration. The open source model configuration validated in one market is the starting point for the next. The direct connection to a data source that replaced a CRM seat in the first business becomes the template for the equivalent integration in the second. The flywheel compounds sovereign infrastructure in the same way it compounds every other resolved architectural decision. The engineering overhead of the first De-SaaS-ing build is absorbed once. Every subsequent build inherits the pattern. By the time Arco is building the fifth company in a given market category, the direct integration that replaced the application SaaS in the first build is a documented, validated solution available from day one. The 65% software spend reduction does not have to be earned separately in each deployment. It is inherited from the architectural decisions that produced it in the first. Sovereign infrastructure also directly enhances exit value in a specific way. An acquirer taking ownership of an Arco business does not inherit a portfolio of vendor relationships, seat license renewal cycles, and subscription agreements managed by a procurement function. They inherit documented integrations, owned logic, and compute costs that are legible and optimizable from the first day of ownership. There are no surprise renewal conversations with SaaS vendors who have built switching costs into the contract. There are no user count audits where the acquiring company discovers that the target has been under-reporting seats. The software layer is transparent, owned, and technically transferable in the same way the operational logic is. This is a direct contributor to the 70% post-merger integration timeline reduction Arco targets. A SaaS-dependent business requires the acquirer to audit, renegotiate, and either retain or replace every vendor relationship in the stack before the integration is complete. A sovereign infrastructure business requires a technical review of owned integrations. The due diligence burden is different in kind, not just in scale. The coordination tax from episodes 3 and 6 operates at the software layer as well as at the operational and customer interface layers. Every application SaaS subscription in an agentic stack is a payment for the coordination infrastructure the business was supposed to eliminate. The approval workflows that require a human to click approve, the dashboard reviews that require a human to interpret a visualization, the access management that requires a human to administer who can see what. An autonomous business that still pays for days is not autonomous. It has automated the task, while retaining the coordination overhead the task required in its human-operated form. There is also a discipline connection to episode 13's machine-readable interface. The De-SaaS-ing governs how Arco's operating companies consume software, inbound as buyers of infrastructure. The machine-readable interface governs how they present to the market, outbound, as providers discoverable by agents. Both require the same API-first architecture at their foundation. A business that has the SaaS head its internal stack has already built the engineering discipline required to construct a proper MRI layer. It understands how to interact with the data through structured interfaces rather than human-mediated applications. The same architectural thinking that removes application SaaS from the internal stack also enables the external agent discovery layer. How do autonomous businesses manage their software costs, and what is De-SaaS-ing? Autonomous businesses eliminate per-user SaaS seat licenses by replacing application SaaS. Software designed for human interfaces and priced per named user, with API-first, compute-based infrastructure SaaS, priced by consumption. This is Arco's De-SaaS-ing discipline. The UI tax. The cost premium embedded in human-facing software features that agents do not use is eliminated by connecting directly to underlying data and logic layers, rather than paying for the graphical application built on top. Arco's observed internal metric is a 65% reduction in internal software spend versus human-centric competitors at equivalent revenue. The architectural standard governing this is a sovereign infrastructure. The agentic core runs on owned open-source models and direct access databases. External infrastructure is rented by consumption only. Here is the verdict on the seat license. The coordination tax as a software equivalent. Every application SaaS subscription in an agentic stack is a payment for human-centric coordination infrastructure that the autonomous architecture was supposed to eliminate. The CRM seat that a human used to log customer interaction is now being queried by an agent through an API endpoint, but the seat license is still being paid because no one has made the architectural decision to De-SaaS it. The UI tax is still running. The transition from headcount to compute is not complete until the software spend reflects it. Most firms that claim to be deploying AI have not made the transition. Their agents are running. Their seat counts have not moved. The workflow was supposed to be reconstructed. McKinsey's 6% of high performers achieved EBIT impact because they redesigned the workflow, but the software evidence suggests that the reconstruction did not happen. The agents were added to the structure. The structure remained. The coordination tax continues to run in subscription form. The full written version of this argument, including the application SaaS versus infrastructure SaaS distinction and the sovereign infrastructure standard, is memo number 14, The Death of the Seat License, on the blog at arcoventure.studio. The Arco lexicon at arcoventure.studio/lexicon defines every term introduced across this arc. Next week, auditable autonomy, solving the black box problem. How Arco builds agentic systems that can be interrogated, verified, and trusted at the governance level. If you are still paying for seat licenses in an agentic workflow, you are not running an autonomous business. You are subsidizing a legacy software vendor. The most profitable companies of the next decade will be those that own their logic and rent only their compute. This has been episode 14 of the Operator Log.